Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. I have a super special guest today. I'm going to introduce everyone to Jerri Kemble.
Hey.
My co-host is actually our guest today because she has written a very special book that you can see in the back, and you can see right here, the Badass Firefly Effect. Lead with light, live with grit, and shine with style and grace by Jerri Kemble. And this is so exciting to have this out.
Thank you.
So you've been able to share it with people. People are loving it. Let's talk about how you came up with the idea to do this, what the progression was, what's your motivation, and your heart behind it.
Sure. Well, I was in education for 38 years, and most of that time I was in a leadership role. And I would watch women, how they had to juggle so many things and how they were judged differently than men were judged in the role. Many times I was the only woman in the room. And over the years, I learned many, many lessons along the way. Some of the things nearly broke me. And some of the things I healed from. And I learned a big lesson that I never wanted to forget. And I wanted to share it with others. And so I've had these stories in my head for a long time. I think about them often.
Some of them you've actually shared on our podcast.
Yes,
some of the stories you've actually brought up because it was relevant to the conversation. So some of these I've heard of, and seeing them woven together, it really kind of says so much. And is so nice that it's just like a gift to others who maybe have been struggling in, similar situations. So that's been interesting to hear them isolated, but then also see them tied together is so cool. Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah. And this is it's a leadership book. If you're leading a household, a classroom, a school district. But the thing is, it's not based on research. It's not a theory book. It's just, and they're not even called chapters. They're called sparks. They're just little sparks stories, chicken soup for the soul style, that you can just pick up, read a spark, think about it. And that's where the deep thinking comes in, is what you think about it. I put reflective questions, hoping people would think about their own journey and some things that maybe they want to do differently, or lessons they themselves have learned along the way.
Right.
So it was interesting. I'd had this in my head for many, many years. And lo and behold, in 1 week, 2 women, of course, show up, and you feel like it's serendipity. One was Barbara Moody, who just keeps telling me, Jerri, you've got to write a book. You have to write this book. And she's now a retired kindergarten teacher. And then I went on Barbara Bray's podcast. And before the show, we were talking, and she said, when are you going to write a book? And I said, it's all up here, Barbara, but I have no idea how to write a book. And she said, let me tell you how. Let me chunk this up for you and tell you how. And I'm not kidding. That afternoon, after I got done with work, I just sat down and started, and I could not stop.
Wow.
It just rolled out. And so it just took, like everything in life, you need someone that believes in you, someone that shines a light for you, and someone that shows you the way. Again, shining a little light for you so that you can start in that direction.
Yeah.
And I know you are writing a book too. And you know how difficult it is.
Different journey. Yeah, totally different journey.
Yes.
It's taken so long. It's a different type of book, and there's research behind it and all of that.
Yes.
So, but there's definitely been momentum in the past Here I have a co-author, so it's much different, but we're getting there.
Good.
So, and I think what's so cool is we've had Barbara Bray on the podcast,
Yes.
and I can really see how that worked for you, having that little nudge from her and those insights of wisdom. She's written so many books.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
she really, and what I love about her too is that she is just similar to your book. She is so willing to share. Well, you don't have to ask. She knows exactly what you need, and she's there to give that advice and to be that mentor, that motivator, that cheerleader. So I can just imagine getting motivated by her to telling her,
Yes.
Jerri, this is what you do. This is how
That's
you do
right.
it. And then you're just saying, yes, I'm going to get there and just do it. And I can see also, because you did do this really quickly, but because they are stories that made you, right? They are who
Right.
you are, right? So the
Right.
stories that made who you are. And so they were always there. As I mentioned, you've already shared several of these on our podcast, just as anecdotal,
Right.
the conversation. So they're all were already there. And what I love about it too, or because one of my favorite things that you do are your doodles. And
Yes.
so I love that you have doodles throughout that relate to each of the sparks. So that is just a gift in itself as well. So I just think that's so
And
great.
that's interesting because I was telling a friend one time, I said, I need to get into meditation and do some meditation, but I really would rather doodle. And she said,
That
you
is
don't want it. That is your meditation. And I said,
exactly.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah.
Because I think about so many things as I'm doing the doodles. And
Yes.
yeah, that's something I started in middle school and have never given up. So,
Yeah. Well, sometimes your doodles are based on because I guess you're sort of like
sketch
that
note.
tactile learner, right? You like to
Yes.
do while listening activities.
Yes.
And so you absorb the content through your doodles. So these doodles that you have in the book, were they doodles that you already had that you repurposed, or did you create them just for the spark? Each spark.
Both.
Both.
I had some that had been done before and I felt like they had a place in the book. And then I had some that I created. And most of them, probably 90% of them, are created on an iPad with a pencil.
Oh, yeah, I know. I find that
Apple pencil.
fascinating.
Yes. So most of them were not created on paper, actually, but the iPads. So that was something I was interested in doing more of, and the book forced my hand.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
So, okay. So let me ask one more question about the process. Did you write a spark and then go right into a doodle? Were you in the middle of a spark and go to a doodle to kind of help? Or how does your mind work when it comes to being the illustrator and also the author?
Right. So typically for almost every time I would write first.
Okay.
And then a vision would come in my head that would kind of show what that meant. So, but I would always do the writing first. And then,
all right.
Then the doodle.
Then the doodle.
Yes.
Another thing about the writing, I mean, you've learned so much through your leadership journey and you had all these stories and now you memorialize them in here. But did you get to a point where you had some new aha moments? You made some new revelations. You made some new connections through this process.
Yes. It's so interesting because this process has been so cathartic and it's helped me feel like more grounded and at ease with my own life, which is, I didn't expect that to happen, but it did. But, sometimes I do speaking like at women's engagements And ClassLink hands out these packing cubes.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
I was thinking about how we have things packed in our metaphorical suitcase before we're even born. People say, I want her to do this. She's going to be follow the family tradition. She's going to be a doctor. She's going to do this, do that. And so I wanted something for women to start to think about all of that stuff that's put away and what we should keep, what's really mine, and what belonged to somebody before me.
Right, right.
A lot of things I had packed in my suitcase, I think belonged to my grandma and her generation. They
Yeah,
don't belong to my generation. And so I want to say thank you for those and
right,
not use those ideas
right.
anymore. But
That's right.
also there's things that were packed for me that I love. Um, Things about being kind and caring about society, caring about people, being respectful. Those things were also packed in there, and I hope they never leave.
They're
So
timeless. They're timeless. Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a new adventure that I had that didn't really come out of the school setting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. Yes.
So, what are some other revelations that you've had? What are some things that you're super proud of with this? What are some things that, you probably knew now that you have this out? What are some things that you're learning?
Well, it's interesting how different things get traction from different people. You know, we handed this out at the Women in Tech conference, and one of the assistant superintendents went back and read it by the pool in the afternoon. And she said that evening her daughter called her, and she's in college, and she was having a difficult time with some roommates that were causing her trouble. And she said, I had just read your chapter on people that drain your battery. And she said to my daughter, these people are draining your battery. And the daughter said, I don't know what you're talking about. So she took screenshots of the book and sent them to her daughter. And her daughter said, that's exactly right. And she said, my daughter ordered 3 of the books to give away to people and
Wow.
to get going. So that was interesting. I also had a superintendent reach out and he said, your chapter on pausing, permission to pause, really hit home with me. I talked about how I was in line and working on a dissertation. Everything is done, but that wasn't where my heart was. That wasn't what I really wanted to do. What I really wanted to do was to continue to help kids. And I felt so guilty and maybe even ashamed that I hadn't finished that until I talked to a friend that said, Jerri, this work is just as powerful and even more so for you than the doctorate would be. You can always do that later. And once he gave me that permission to pause and I thought about what he was saying, I felt okay with my decision. And this superintendent said, I have gone through that very same angst that you expressed in the book. So those things have been interesting. And another story from the book that seems to really hit home with a lot of women is to not shrink and not try to look like the men. I told how I was invited to Washington, D.C. to the White House, and a group of very caring women said to me, Jerri, you know, you need to wear black suits so that you don't look like you're visiting the city. And they all wear black there. And I said, oh, okay. And I thought about it and I thought, no, that's not okay. I don't want to blend in. I want to stand out because not for me, but for the story I'm telling about these kids.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I wore a pink suit. And the next year, they invited our group back, but said, we can only bring a couple people this year to the White House, but we want that lady in the hot pink suit that was in the week. We want her to come back. So it worked for me.
Yeah.
It did what I hoped it would do.
That's right. The stories are relatable. So it seems that different people can just have these different connections to different sparks that are in there.
Hear like grandiose stories of
Right.
huge things. They're just everyday life things that you come across, you know, in your life. So that's what I want it to be. And I hope that it inspires people to find the light that they have, because I hear people say, oh, I'm not a rock star educator, I can't do that. And I'm thinking, yes, everyone has it in them. Sometimes it's the quiet ones that are helping along that are making the biggest difference, not the person out in front that's making the splash. And so we all have it in us. It's just finding it and then keeping it alive.
Yeah.
Which is hard.
Yeah, it is hard. But it's also an opportunity, I think, because we just keep plowing through life sometimes, right? And we don't sit back and think and reflect. And this, I think, those sparks provide sparks in people to say, oh my gosh, I didn't really think of it that way. That's so true, just like you described. So it gives them that opportunity to be reflective of their own situation and make those connections, and hopefully make some changes and not, sometimes not changes, but sometimes just accepting, and being comfortable with certain
validating.
situations. That's right. Validating.
Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. Yes, that's the hope. And I also included someone that we'd had on the podcast, her compass that
Yeah.
Ella Ben
Yes.
that she has for making decisions. Because after that podcast, it's amazing how these things affect us. And unless we pause and think about it, we don't reflect on it.
Right.
But I had a very difficult time in my life that I was trying to process through. And people were saying, you need to cut that person out of your life. Just don't do that. And I knew in my heart, I couldn't cut that person out of my life. I loved that person. And so I read her compass, and what hit me was, what's the most important thing here? And immediately, the most important thing was my relationship with that person.
Right.
It wasn't me being right and that person being wrong. It was preserving that relationship.
Right.
And so it told me to keep my mouth shut. And I know we always tell people, speak up, speak your truth. Sometimes that's not the best way. And, sometimes that's the easiest way too, just to get it off your chest.
Right.
But once I read that, I had a whole different perspective on what I was going through.
It's actually the whole Firefly Effect. Kevin Honeycutt episode
was
he told this story, and you just connected. We both did, but you especially connected with that so strongly, and you actually did a couple sessions on it, at different conferences, and it just lit a spark in you. And obviously, it actually was part of the fabric of this book, which is so terrific. And he must be so proud of that too.
Well, he has reached out, and I'm going to be on his podcast sometime soon. But yes, he has a way with words that is pretty incredible. But when he said we were like fireflies collecting all of these wonderful people in our jar to light up our world, I was like, I love that. I'm holding on to that. And and I've told him, thank you for that a couple of times. But the badass part, people, it's so funny. My aunt, she's a former principal, and now she lives in it's not assisted living, but a group of older people that all live together, and she's the librarian there. And a couple of the ladies can't read very well, and she brought the book in. And so now they've asked her if she will read little segments every day to them. And so she reads it to them. And one of them wanted to buy a book. And she said, what was the name of it? And my aunt said, Badass Firefly. She said, oh, how could I not forget Badass? How can I not forget that? But Badass is, to me, is courage with kindness. Being able to have the courage to do what you need to do, but to be kind about it. You don't have to be mean about it. And it's another theme of the book is that you can get a lot done by being a badass firefly and lighting up other people. It's not about just lighting up yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's also fitting too, because as the person, one of the people who kind of pushed you to do this, Barbara Bray, that's what she's all about. Is always lifting up other people. So I think that's all very, very fitting as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jamie, you are a badass firefly too. You have lit up my life in so many ways. And
well, I know, and it's ditto for you too. And I think our podcast actually is a perfect example of that as well.
I do too.
Our role is to find those amazing stories and those voices and to spotlight them and showcase them. And so I think that's what our podcast does every day.
Right. And we hopefully light up somebody else's world that maybe wouldn't have been lit up because they wouldn't have had that experience with that person.
Yeah, so, I think so too. All right. So LinkedUp Breaking Boundaries in Education is a Badass Firefly also.
That's right. We sure are.
Very good. Well, this is fun. I'm so excited for you. This is so fun. People are loving it. And, just, of course, what you do so well is bring joy. And that's what this book does as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And it's been fun being, I wasn't a bit worried because you are great at asking questions.
That I know. I kind of dug in there with your sketching because that to me, it just brings me so much joy. You're so talented. And what's so interesting is that you always say that you're not. And you just think they're so simple. Oh my gosh, they are so joyous. They really are. So I think it's so perfect that they're part of this book.
Well, thank you for having me as a guest today.
Yes, absolutely. Till next time.
That's right. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.